Hi everyone, it's Rena. So this video is if you have your sun in Pisces and Leo rising. And this combination is very interesting because you're talking about fire and water. And actually, I could say water and fire since talking about the sun first, which is a water sign, and fire. And both of these signs are emotional. Water energy is very personally emotional, and fire, when you think about getting fired up, it's like about an idea, about, some kind of a cause. And so it's impersonal, but they both are full of emotion in one way or the other. And so another thing that this combination has in common is that they are both creative. So I would say, first and foremost, that you might be a very artistic person. And as a Pisces, you might even be a performer because the rising sign can be how the person behaves when they're with other people. And this can be the extroverted personality. Now, whether or not this person truly is extroverted all the way around is a different story because Leo is a masculine sign, being fire, and the water element is feminine. Feminine signs, the earth and the water signs, tend to be more introverted overall, and more like if they had a choice, they would rather, like if they were going to do something social, they'd rather be with a close circle, like a tight knit circle of friends or family members, in a very quiet situation than some loud party where they're just kind of like meeting new people left and right and expanding their social network. There's a whole different vibe with these two energies, but I have observed Pisces people, and they say that Pisces can imitate other signs. And I think there are some Pisces people who, come across like Sages, for instance, and they may be kind of like very social and more inclined to be like a fire type of individual. And by the way, if your sun is in Pisces, you're adjacent to the sign of Aries, so you could have personal planets in Aries anyhow. The moon sign can be anything. It's not dependent on being born as a Pisces, but you might have Mercury, Venus, and or Mars in Aries, and that would make you more fiery by virtue of that. So, what I would say about this combination is that as a Pisces person, you are going to carry yourself with more confidence with Leo at the ascendant. I have said over and over again that I believe people who are born under the sign of Pisces have probably had their fair share of trauma. And I include the moon and the rising sign with this. If any of the three are in Pisces, I tend to just automatically assume that. And this is specifically about Pisces because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It is the ruler of the 12th house, which is a karmic house. So you will see Pisces people that they tend to be old souls, and they have they might have some sort of burden to carry in one way, shape, or form. Pisces sometimes can be the victim. I don't mean that in terms of their characterization of themselves, although that can also be the case for some Pisces, is that they identify as a victim, but that they do get victimized maybe more so than the average sign, like they are the scapegoat. And part of this is because of what Pisces represents, being the 12th house. and being connected to karma, meaning the influence from past lives, um, but also being a self-sacrificial type of a sign, where Pisces, when you come into this incarnation, you may have chosen some very tough lessons before you even got here because you were trying to make spiritual progress, perhaps. Or maybe you're trying to clear the decks about, if you are an old soul, all the past lives that you've had. So the point being that you may have a cross to bear. I think of the Christ complex, or the experience of the person, like Jesus, taking on the sins of humanity. And sometimes, this leads Pisces people to be very self-sacrificial in that sense, where they are putting other people before themselves. But there's also the martyrdom, which is kind of the we could call that the other side of the coin, where the person may almost like get off on this idea that they are a victim. Well, I have to be very careful about saying that, because I don't mean it like that, but that you might get off on the fact that you are so um, self-sacrificing, um, up until a point, and then you may even resent some of the things that you have gotten yourself into. Now, I will say that when you have Leo rising, there may be less of this, because Leo has a certain dignity. If you think of a lion, there's a noble quality of a lion. And so you are ruled by the sun, because your rising sign is Leo, although you can definitely consider your ruler your sun sign as well. I mean, you would say both of them, but technically, when they talk about your ruler, they're talking about the chart ruler being the sun. And the sun is so central to, like, even in astrology, the sun sign is everything. So this is something to really look at, and also look at where your sun falls in your chart, because that will indicate, the importance of that in your life, like wherever the ruler is in the chart. Now, because your rising sign is Leo, because your rising sign is Leo, your sun sign may be actually in the sixth house, although, the eighth house. But it depends on the degree of your sun sign, where it's going to be, because the unequal house system is what I use and a lot of people use, and it's not going to necessarily be the same for everyone. But in any case, the point is that these two signs form an inconjunction, which means that they are 150 degrees apart and an awkward angle. And what is said about this is that the elements that they represent are not compatible, and the signs are not compatible. So the inconjunction is said to be like an awkward angle. And quite frankly, there are times where I have seen that, as the truth, based on the signs involved. But in this particular case, I feel like um, this is actually not that weird of a combination, because of what I mentioned. I think that these are two creative signs. And I also think that they are two colorful signs. I think Pisces, of all the water signs, is a colorful sign. And maybe it's because it is ruled by Neptune that there is this imaginative and, of course, spiritual, but I was going to say like very fantasy laden kind of influences from um, coming to from that Neptune contact that make or rulership that make Pisces people very ethereal or otherworldly. And then you add the Leo energy, which is very larger than life, and that can combine to be a very memorable character. And so this can this can be a person who's very warm-hearted. I think that both of these signs, Pisces is very compassionate, and Leo is very warm. And so you may be very touchy-feely with people. You may be very generous. You may be generous to a fault. Pisces is very moved by hard luck kind of stories. So sometimes you are an easy mark. When people, have sob stories, you might open your wallet. And I also think this is a very romantic combination for sure. And that may get you into some very interesting situations depending on other factors. So you do have to look at the moon sign, you do have to look at Venus, because those two planets will indicate that your love nature. And let's say your Venus is in Aquarius. Let's say your moon is in Gemini. You might be a lot more detached and a lot more like the Leo, where you're playing the field. You might just be like more, adverse to settle down versus somebody else. So I don't want to just say that you're going to automatically be a certain way when it comes to love, but I do think that you are very romantic. And I do think that you are a natural performer. So it could be just about anything. It could be music, it could be theater, because Pisces is a water sign. It can be a chameleon, so you may have an ability to kind of channel different characters, morph into different characters, and then you have that confidence and theatrical tendencies from Leo as your rising sign to really just get up on that stage. You might love to like attract attention. And so that can be wonderful or if it's music, whatever it is. You may have talent in this area, even dance. I'm saying the performing arts because of that, you know, nature that tends to be extroverted and looking for attention. Now, in terms of careers, technically, I would look at the uh, sun sign for more of that. But here we're dealing with Pisces. So Pisces is not a practical sign. So it does tend to be very kind of imaginative or, trending towards something like that. So that's why I talk about the creative arts and looking at the needs of the ascendant to kind of, be seen by others, and that being the perfect fit for that. But other things that you might be interested in are things like a healing arts career. And who knows, it might be that you begin with being a nurse because there's that nurturing quality of the water element, that where you just naturally want to take care of people. And then you might migrate into something that is more of like the spiritual healing rather than just the material side of things. You might see limitations in that and want to do that. Um, Also, anything I feel like with maybe taking care of the elderly, for instance, like in a nursing home scenario, people who are helpless. And let me think, what other kind of things when I see with Pisces? Maybe something involving the water element. I remember when, there were people, like in high school when people were deciding like what they were going to major in. I always thought it was cool when people wanted to major in oceanography because, it's something, it's off the beaten path, but it's also like, wow, studying the ocean, studying the living creatures in the ocean. How cool is that? So you may want to do something where you're by a body of water, or maybe um, join the Navy. I don't know. uh, so yeah, that can be something that is maybe something on a. Oh, here. Oh gosh, how could I not think of this? A performer on a cruise ship. Hello, that would be perfect. Absolutely perfect. So, anyway, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.